Okay. My name is Sam Stagg, and I am with the City of Ames Public Art Commission. We're a commission under the City of Ames that has been around for 20 years, and our basic charge is to promote public art. And we really enjoy doing it. We're really passionate about what we do, and so we're really excited to have you here tonight. But before we get started, I just want to thank a few folks who have really contributed a lot of time, effort, and resources to make this evening happen. First of all, I want to thank Pat Miller and the ISU Lectures Program, funded through the GSB. They're doing a great job. Paul Lasley, the Chair of Anthropology and Sociology. Jim Mason with Country Landscapes. He's donated a lot of the rocks for the materials. Also, Martin Marietta Materials here in town. They've donated some large stones as well. And then, of course, the City of Ames Park and Rec Department, Parks and Rec Commission, and the sponsoring committee, the Public Art Commission, and all the volunteers of all those different groups who have put together a lot of time and resource to make this happen. So right now I'd like to introduce Lynn Paxson, who is a professor of architecture of College of Design and also the advisor to the Native American groups here on campus, and she'll introduce our speaker tonight.
I would say, I make a joke, can you guys hear me in the back? That, of course, we're operating on Indian time. But there is actually a not cultural joke about that, which is that things happen when they're supposed to. So now we're ready, and we're supposed to do this. It's my great honor tonight to introduce our speaker, an Inuit cultural activist. He grew up in a really traditional way. He might call it sort of the igloo way or the igloo culture until he was about 12, and he was taken off to state boarding schools in Canada. And he worked really hard on establishing with his colleagues the Inuit or First Nations homeland Nunavut in Canada, and he was the second commissioner of Nunavut for 5 years. He's passionate about maintaining both the language and the culture of the Inuit, making people feel proud of being Inuit. We would say on the plains that we have a sense of maka'ochante, or a sense of place. And part of what he's going to talk about tonight are Inukshut, and I'm probably mispronouncing that, so you'll find out how to say it properly in a little bit, which are things that are about survival, making good places and guidance. And they're also a way of saying, we have been here for a long time, we are here, and we will be here into the future. And so it's my great pleasure, and can you help me give him a warm, before I ask you to give me a warm welcome, can everybody put their cell phone on pleasure? Because we don't want to be interrupted during the talk. Elders always say that in the things. So help me make a warm welcome for tonight's speaker, Peter Ernick.
Okay. Good evening. Huyinamik in my Inuit language. Let me just tell you, first of all, the reason why it was taking so long over here, because everything here is metric. I was meeting some of you Americans in the last couple of days, and some people were telling me that you must be a Canadian, eh? So I would say something to people, and they would say, uh-huh. So coming here tonight, I just compose a song, and I call it, That's the Way, I like it. So, well, first of all, let me take this opportunity to thank City of Ames. I was here last year and selecting 3 spots for to build an Inukshuk or Inukshuit. You will see some pictures here of Inukshuit as we go along. Those are the Inukshuit that I will be talking about later on this week at another location. They are symbols of survival, symbols for good fishing places or good hunting places, because as Inuit, we are still a hunting society. All of the pictures that you see here are taken from Nunavut, both in the wintertime, springtime, fall time, and summertime. So we have 4 seasons in the Arctic where I come from, in Nunavut, and Nunavut means our land in my language. Let me also take this opportunity to thank Iowa State University for having me here tonight. Firstly, let me say how happy I am to be here in Ames tonight. I hope my talk will give you an insight into the culture that I love so much, and encourage you to come and visit Nunavut to see for yourself sometime. Tonight, I'm here to talk about how Inuit lived 50 years ago and how we are living today. When I was a young boy, we wore animal skins and lived in igloos and sod houses in the wintertime and tents in the summertime. We lived in small groups, usually all related to each other, and worked together to share in the hard work for survival. We were close-knit groups who worked and played together, and we were mostly in control of our own destiny, of our own lives. Children were loved and encouraged young to learn by observation of their parents' ways. We were fiercely independent and very ingenious in our approach to survival. We traveled great distances, and we were very welcoming to visitors. Today, Inuit live in communities, small by your standards. In Nunavut, there are about 25,000 Inuit in a population of about 30,000 people. Nunavut has 3 time zones, and no communities are connected by roads. We have municipal and territorial governments, and our children go to school. We live in houses, wooden houses, drive cars or snow machines to go to work, pay for our own groceries in stores, and worry about the bills that have to be paid. We still travel great distances, but now by airplane. We earn our living by working in the wage economy, and we vote when our leaders call an election. A little bit about myself. I was born in an igloo, a dwelling made of snow, on February 1947, 50 miles east of Nauyat Repulse Bay. I was the 4th child of my parents, 5 children, but only my older sister and I survived in adulthood. When I was born, we were living a traditional way of life. We were my parents, my older sister, her husband and children, and my younger siblings. We also lived with at least one other family, made up of about the same way. We were a hunting society and were completely dependent upon the land, animals, and the sea creatures for our survival. We traveled by dog team in the wintertime and walked great distances in the summertime in search of caribou. As a little boy, I grew up craving for dried caribou meat, fat, caribou fat, eyes, ears of the caribou, and fish eyes. Caribou fat and berries in the summertime were considered a real delicacy. Our diet was not very varied, so we looked forward to seaweed, berries, birds, and bird eggs in the summertime. We used Inukshuk as markers to indicate the good hunting grounds, as guides to mark our way. Inuit were taught to remember the shapes of the land to ensure that they were able to navigate the land. My family believed in and practiced shamanism and Inuit spirituality. It's something that I believe in and greatly respect today. as it was our only religion for many, many thousands of years. Inuit today are mostly Christians, have been Christianized as an assortment of priests, ministers, and representatives of many other religions. Many are fiercely religious today, and attending a church is still high among middle and older persons. We use snow of certain consistency to make igloo for our winter shelters, or we use moss and rocks to make a sod house. The sod house was warmer in the winter time than the snow house, but when traveling, the igloo was the only choice. In the summer, we used tents made of sealskin or caribou skins before we used the canvas that came with the early Hudson Bay Company traders. Rocks were used to hold down the tents, to cache our meat by piling rocks over the meat to prevent animals from finding it. We also use rocks to fish weirs, dams across the rivers to make it easier to catch fish for a winter supply of food. Inuit are the most patient people in the world, being able to survive the harshest conditions in the world. As a young boy, my father used to tell me, Inuktitut ukatsiaka sukattarit. Learn to speak the Inuktitut language fluently. I was 11 before I went away to school, and up until then, I knew only Inuktitut with a smattering of French spoken by the missionaries and some English as spoken by the store and government employees. I had a good ability to mime or to mimic, and was able to pick up languages easily. Thank you. We were taken to residential schools in the 1950s, and once there we were not allowed to speak our language. If we spoke Inuktitut, we were slapped on the hand with a meter stick or a yardstick. Just thinking about it today, my hand still pains. I always maintain my language, even when I spend most of my time with English-speaking Canadians. I learned several Inuktitut dialects and still enjoy speaking them today. I worked several years as an interpreter for bureaucrats and businesses. I have always promoted the use of, and most importantly, the accurate use of the Inuit language to make sure it survives. It is at times difficult because English is a very strong and thus very influential language. We have taken many steps to save our language. The government of Nunavut, as I said, it means our land in my Inuit language, takes many steps to help save the language. The government publishes everything in Inuktitut and Inuit Naktun. Inuit Naktun is a sub-dialect of the Inuktitut language. The Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, CBC, radio in Nunavut has about 15 hours of Inuktitut programming a week or every day, each week. Aboriginal People's Television Network has several hours per week of Inuktitut programming on television. The news media, such as Nunatsiaq News and News North, translate the papers in the Inuktitut languages so that our Inuit readers can read in their own language. We are teaching our children to speak in Inuktitut in the classroom from kindergarten to grade 3. We now have all Inuktitut school in Clyde River, opened last spring. Here, both Inuit and non-Inuit can learn about Inuit history, Inuit culture, and Inuit Kauyimayatukhangit. Let me hear you say that. Inuit Kauyimayatukhangit means Inuit traditional knowledge. We had an oral culture. Our language was not written, as our traditional life in the Arctic did not allow us. We use syllabics that were created by the Anglican priest to permit the missionaries to translate the Bible. In the west of our territory, the Inuit there use Roman orthography to write in their language or in their dialect. Keep in mind that as Inuit from far eastern Russia to Alaska to Canada and to Greenland, we have one language, but many different dialects. At first, the syllabics were not able to reproduce all the sounds, so in the 70s, one of our Inuit organizations produced a new standardized orthography to ensure that words could be written more accurately. Today, we struggle to have Inuktitut words written accurately to protect the meanings of the words. If we do not spell our words accurately, they lose their meaning, for example, or their meaning is changed altogether. That includes our personal names and our community names. We now have established in Nunavut an Inuit language authority to ensure the protection of our Inuktitut language and to assist us to develop a standardized Inuit language. In Nunavut, we have 2 government agencies that help to protect our language. The Department of Culture, Language, Elders and Youth are responsible to make sure that elders are involved in every respect of Inuit culture and language. Our elders are very important for the survival of our culture and language, and we are the guardians of our traditional Inuit culture. We do this through Inuit Kauyimaya Tukhangit, IQ for short, or Inuit traditional knowledge. Our culture and language have been written about by non-Inuit to the point where some of it does not accurately reflect Inuit culture and Inuit language. In the past, they spell our names incorrectly, or they tell the world about Inuit culture without understanding many aspects of our Inuit culture. Our drum dancing is a celebration of life. When Inuit had good hunting seasons and there was no hunger or no starvation, we would celebrate the longer days by building a kalgyak, or large snow house. And one of the main activities was the drum dance, throat singing, and playing games. The men drummed to their songs, as sung usually by their wives. Women did throat singing to entertain themselves while their husbands were out hunting. The challenge with throat singing was to see who could avoid laughing the longest. Would you like to try that? That's one of the airlines that we own as Inuit, by the way. Drum dancing was a community activity, and the style of the drum dance and the drum dance was passed on from generation to generation. Each community, don't worry about that. Each community or each region had a distinctive way of drum dancing. With the coming of the missionaries and the explorers, drum dancing was discouraged and even forbidden for a time. The new people believed this expression of joy and happiness to be an expression of evil. Heavily influenced by these newcomers, many Inuit stopped the practice of drum dancing for many years. The missionaries stopped our drum dancing, calling it bewitching, or Satan's medicine. As a result, in several regions of Nunavut, Inuit have forgotten how to drum dance, how to sing the traditional Inuit songs. Inuit must now be responsible to teach our children, to tell the stories, to sing, and to dance, and to be proud of whom we are as people. Inuit are now free to practice every aspect of Inuit culture without interference from the government or religious organizations. We are free to express our feelings without fear from anyone. But not all Inuit feel free to express themselves or have learned well the lessons of the other religions and still hold with the fear of what Inuit were in the past. Inuit must identify what is important to us about our culture and our language, and advocate within the powers of government and Inuit organizations to ensure that our rich history and all that goes with it cross into our present day life. Inuit traditionally did not have or did not use intoxicants. Our nomadic life, or our traditional life, the intense cold of many months of the year and very short summers with small plants did not permit in making of alcohol. We use plants and herbs as teas and medicine, but not as intoxicants. Using intoxicants is our environmentally challenging land would have been increased our mortality rate greatly if we had access to them. Unfortunately, today our people have absorbed the use of intoxicants of all descriptions. Inuit do not have the centuries of adaptation that European stock have for the use of alcohol, and therefore suffer rapid intoxication, increased violent behavior, and family breakdown and death as a result. We are building a museum in Nunavut. Up until now, all the artifacts from Nunavut have been in the Northwest Territories, southern part of Canada, and countries like the United Kingdom, Denmark, and yes, in the United States. Explorers came and took many artifacts, including skeletons from graves back to their own countries. Government and religious organizations and others officials took items home with them, and some have donated to museums in southern Canada and other places throughout the world. Having a museum will allow Inuit to negotiate the repatriation of artifacts from southern Canada and then from other countries. Be prepared to negotiate with Inuit. Our elders and youth go hand in hand. Our elders have the knowledge for the culture, the language, and the traditions, and are working to pass on their knowledge to our youth in Nunavut. Elders are invited to the classrooms, to the schools, to friendship centers, and to public forums to talk about the hunting and fishing for survival, and the family life, traveling, and spirituality. Today, we have a very good opportunity to take back our own culture and our own language. Inuit youth are no different in pursuing economic opportunities and jobs as their counterparts in southern Canada and Western societies. We don't live in snow houses anymore. Our youth no longer have to be taken away by the government and the churches to attend residential school like my generation was taken away forcibly from our parents. We have a community education faculty that goes up to grade 12. We are aiming to have Inuktitut courses from K to grade 12 in Nunavut. We have a French school in Iqaluit that provides K to 9 in the Francophone environment. Once the youth have completed grade 12, they are encouraged to go beyond high school. We have Nunavut Arctic College that provides many training opportunities or training programs and works in collaboration with various universities to offer degree programs in Nunavut. Once the youth have finished school, they have several choices, such as obtaining employment with various agencies in their own community, moving to another community, or even to southern Canada to gain a valuable experience. When we were negotiating Nunavut land claims in the 1970s or 1980s, our Inuit group established Nunavut Sivuniksavut, which means Nunavut Our Future. a 2-year program offered in Ottawa. This program educates our youth from Nunavut about politics, social sciences, culture, health, and justice. These 20 or 30 young people per year become our ambassadors from Nunavut. They travel all over the world talking about the creation of Nunavut and performing drum dances and traditional singing. They are connecting Nunavut people from Nunavut with the rest of the world. Perhaps you might be interested in inviting them to your university one day. I have seen some enormous changes in the Arctic over the course of my short 64 years. I went from igloo to microwave in less than 50 years. Or another way of putting that, from igloo to internet in less than 50 years. For centuries, the inhabitants of the Arctic regions have been traditional people who looked to the land and to the sea to support and sustain them. We continue to hold this way of life dear to our hearts and minds. Today, my grandchildren like to eat store-bought food, but I would like them to eat traditional foods, such as caribou, seal, meat, and fish. You know, healthy foods from the land. My generation of Inuit came from the snow house to the wooden houses, microwaves, and now Facebook, and assorted electric communication devices in less than 50 years. Inuit are a very adaptable people. They have wholeheartedly adapted snow machines, all-terrain vehicles, rifles, and the multitude of audio-visual devices modern medicine offers longer and more comfortable life for most of us today. As you know, in 1999, the Government of Canada divided the Northwest Territories into two, and Nunavut came into being. The people voted for a representative government that would elect 19 members of the Legislative Assembly from as many constituencies, taking into account population and geography. This is a non-partisan elected group who then amongst themselves choose a leader called a Premier of Nunavut and the persons to serve as cabinet ministers or ministers. The Premier then assigns the portfolios to his or to her cabinet. Currently, we have Eva Ariak, the only woman, or she was the only woman when she was elected as Premier of Nunavut 3 years ago. Now she has two more women colleagues in the Legislative Assembly, which is something that I personally support wholeheartedly. Our deliberations in the House are available in Inuktitut, French and English, with interpreters available to interpret and to translate each of the dialects as required. Decisions are made by consensus, and if anything, the cabinet functions as the party in power, and the members without portfolios are called opposition members of the group. Our political leaders have had to forge their way with the consensus government, not without a few difficulties, but considering the small population and the desire to respect the Inuit way of life, this is the best governing system available to us at this point in time. We have adopted many modern ways, taking advantage of marvelous opportunities we now have to link us to each other and to the world. Nunavut and its people hold such promise, and I am confident we will make the most of all opportunities that lay before us. As we move towards and embrace the future, we must never lose the sight of all that past has been offering to us and that has yet to teach us. We must challenge what we have yet to see and experience ahead of us. I hope what I have shared with you is something that you came to hear. I hope it is something that you can relate to when you are looking to accomplish your goals and educate and train your own youth. The thing that we did over the past 50 years is to work with the Canadian government to make our territory, or Nunavut, our reality. The help that we got from our Inuit leaders and Inuit elders in those days was tremendous because of their knowledge and their wisdom of the land and sea and knowing where the animals are. Their traditional language helped Inuit to gain knowledge about setting up our own language services in Nunavut, in Inuktitut and Inuit-Naktun. We want to continue to use our language in the government workplace as well as within Inuit organizations. Private companies are asked to do their own translations, including their company names in Inuktitut, syllabics, and Inuit-Naktut languages. This means when you are in any community in Nunavut, you can see signs written in 2 or 3 languages. This is taking back our language, our culture, with great deal of pride, vision. Our language is our strength for our future. We are building relationships. We are building partnerships. We are, most of all, establishing friendship with you tonight and the rest of the world. Thank you very much for listening to me tonight.
Thank you, Peter. That was great. We're going to open it up for questions. I believe there's a mic floating around. Is that the case? Anybody see a mic? Good. Just go ahead and stand up and give us a question if you have one.
Okay, well, thank you very much, sir. It's a wonderful presentation. So I was privileged enough to visit Nunavut a couple of years ago for a very short amount of time. And I wish I had seen this presentation beforehand because there was so much that I saw that I didn't understand. But one thing that I was very much struck with was wondering what you, the Inuit, see as the long-term opportunities for you to support yourself economically. That was something that I was kind of left wondering and without any real comforting direction.
Thank you very much. That's a very good question. One of the things that we have, in terms of economic opportunities for our young people, and the people of Nunavut, for example, is tourism is becoming a very important part of our economic opportunity in Nunavut, because Inuit themselves, ourselves, we're in control of tourism today. Just to let you know, we are involved in a very big way in tourism. 2 weeks ago, I was involved in teaching Inuit culture on the cruise ship that went from Qoqloktok to Cambridge Bay to Igloolik and then to Iqaluit. These things were not possible for, up until about 5 years ago. But these are the kind of things that we're doing along with our young people in Nunavut. And the other thing that we're doing in Nunavut now is to have a lot of involvement of mining industry up north. We're mining, they're mining for gold. They're mining for all kinds of minerals, including diamonds. So there is a lot of mining industry that's going on right now in the Arctic, particularly in Nunavut, and a lot of young people in particular are involved in economic opportunities from that point of view. And there's lots of other things too. They work in the government. Our young people are becoming more involved in the government of Nunavut, federal government, as well as Inuit organizations such as Nunavut Tungavik Incorporated, which is an organization that is looking after the beneficiaries' compensation monies that we got from the government of Canada in July of 1993. Does that answer part of your question? Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Surely there's got to be more questions.
As an artist, would you talk about graphic arts and sculptural arts in your country?
Arts and crafts? Sure. I really enjoy that question because Inuit are very great artists. We've been carving for thousands of years in a small way. But in the 1950s, we started to carve in a much bigger way. We carve carvings, for example, out of soapstone, out of bone, out of a narwhal tusk, for example. And we do a lot of printmaking as well in different communities. There is one community that is extremely famous for arts and crafts, and that's the community of Cape Dorset. Inuit art and craft is in great deal of demand all over the world, and it's very much wanted by the international community. So my mother was one of the very first carvers in the 1950s, early 1950s, and I didn't bring with me tonight, but in Canada, what we try to do is to recognize the work of the Aboriginal people in a real big way. And just to give you an example, in 2002, there were 3 Aboriginal stamps that were made by the Government of Canada on the part of the post office. And my mother's carving of Virgin Mary carrying Jesus like this, made out of ivory, was one of 3 Aboriginal stamps for 2002. So that promotes Inuit carving in a very big way, and it's something that I really support because I do some carving myself, and encouraging young people in particular also to do some carving and arts and crafts and things like that. So arts and crafts is something that we do quite a lot, and it's always promoting Inuit culture, always promoting the environment, always promoting the animals. So it's something that I support 100%, if not 150%. Somebody else had their...
Hi, I just wanted to know about the artwork that you're putting in our parks in Ames.
The Inukshuk. Let me give you a little lesson in Inuktitut language. Inuk means person. Inuk means 2 persons. Inuit means 3 or more. Inuksuk means likeness of a person. So that's what Inuksuk is. Yes, last year I was invited to Ames to help identify 3 parks to build Inuksuit, 3 or more. And so what I'm doing here is building 3 Inuksuit at 3 different parks in the city here. The purpose of Inuksuit is survival for Inuit, because I have always been part of our survival. They indicate good fishing places, they indicate good caribou hunting places and things like that. So Inuksuit, you know, those are silent markers or voiceless markers. They play an important role for future travelers of Inuit. And what I do is when I'm asked to build an Inuksuk at different places in the world, is I really do enjoy doing something like this because I have an opportunity to promote Inuit culture to the rest of the world and be able to promote my culture, my language, and what we're doing as Inuit today. So Inukshuk is a symbol of Inuit, made by Inuit many, many thousands of years ago for survival. We are building Inuksuit in many different parts of Nunavut, as they did within the Northwest Territories, Alaska, and Russia, as well as Greenland. But particularly for ourselves, it gives me an opportunity to establish relationship with the city of Ames, for example, because I have, I'm building bridges, for example, between Inuit and city of Ames and the people of Iowa. And the fact that I'm able to do this in the other states in the United States, I've built about maybe 20 Inuksuit in many different parts of the United States already, including Santa Fe, Chicago, Peabody Essex Museum, and a number of other states here. So I really do enjoy working about something like this because, as I said, it gives me an opportunity to meet people and for you to meet me and allow us to connect and establish friendship and relationship. Does that make kind of sense? Sure. Thank you.
Yeah, there are 3 parks, Ada Hayden Park, the Emma McCarthy Lee Park, and also Brookside. And let's see here. Specific locations, you can't miss it at Brookside. It's right by the main entry. Also on Emma McCarthy Lee, it's on the upper level where the flagpole used to be, right next to the shelter. And then Ada Hayden, let's see here, it's near the bridge. And so if you kind of walk toward the, let's see here, south of the shelter area near the bridge, that's where you'll find those three sculptures.
Thank you. Just to kind of explain a little bit further about the Inukshuk, because Inuit traditionally never had telescope, so we built Inukshuk as a messenger. The one that I'm making at Emma McCarthy Lee has a quote-unquote window on top. What that window means is if you look through that window, you may see out in the distance a good fishing place or a good caribou hunting place or anything like that. And if you look the other way, you might see a good seal hunting place, for example. So I make that little window on top to indicate that kind of idea for building an Inukshuk. The other Inukshuk will have a pointer. Sometimes you build an Inukshuk with a pointer pointing at a good fishing lake, for example. So we make Inukshuk to tell the future travelers this is the place to go and fish, to go and caribou hunt and things like that. So I just give you an example of what I'm making. The one I just finished, as I said, has a little window on top. Any other questions?
Thank you. You had mentioned that the importance of preserving culture, particularly language, and you also mentioned, you alluded to advanced technologies in Nunavut. I was wondering if you could speak to whether technology has inhibited or prevented language preservation or helped it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Technology, if anything, has helped to enhance the Inuktitut language, because as you might have seen in one of the signs here, we have Inuktitut signage, syllabics, and things like that. We now have computers that we've developed into Inuktitut syllabics. So as Inuit, using that particular Inuktitut language, Inuktitut syllabic computer, we can write in our own dialect, in our own language to other Inuit. So if anything, we have advanced the Inuktitut language through various means of technology that is available to us today. And all the newspapers, for example, are using the Inuktitut fonts, for example, on the keyboard to write everything in Inuktitut and English, and sometimes Inuit Naktun as well, which is the subdialect of Inuktitut language. Inuit Naktun is the dialect of Inuit from the West Nunavut. So technology has advanced our ability to promote Inuktitut language and Inuit Naktun language in a much bigger way than before.
Thank you. I actually have 2 questions, and thank you for your presentation. It's been wonderful. My first question is, and forgive me if this is just too naive, but do you glue these rocks together or something like that? Because I'm sure you're aware this is cyclone country here in Ames, and we would hate to have your wonderful work fall down quickly. That's my first question. My second question is, I come from College of Human Sciences, where we do a lot with child development. And would you encourage us to have the children in their play activities to try to duplicate your artwork, or would that be insulting to your culture as a way for them to learn about your culture?
Traditionally, we did not have any glue, so we never glued our Inukshuk, but made them to make sure that they are able to withstand 250 kilometer an hour winds in the Arctic. And we do have very strong winds in the Arctic, so they're made to withstand big winds up in the Arctic. Down here, we have to glue them together by putting cement on them, so that they don't get knocked down by people. The other thing that I learned as a little boy from my mother was she used to tell me never to knock down Inuksuit because they were made many, many thousands of years ago. And she said, if you do, you may have bad luck with your life. So be careful about those Inukshuks when they're completed. So we have to, we also have to drill a couple of holes to make sure that we lock them together with a steel down here so that we don't knock them down. They're very nice to look at, and we just ask people to make sure that they're careful about when they're around Inuksuit, because, as I said, they're quite nice. What I make is the best Inuksuk in the world. Yeah, children making. I encourage your children to make Inuksuit. I have no say over that. I have no control over that. I don't even go as far as up to saying to you that if you make an Inuksuk, you're insulting my culture. I don't do that. But I encourage the young people, young kids, to go ahead and make little Inuksuks if they want to. But be careful with the rocks, though, you know.
I was very pleased to learn about Inukshuk on a trip to Alaska, and was very excited when the Vancouver Olympics featured an Inukshuk as its logo. I thought that was very exciting. But I wonder for you personally, because you're traveling a lot, being an ambassador, how many months out of the year do you spend in your village? How many months during the year? How many months do I spend at my home? I'd like to spend a lot of time at home, but I don't spend a lot of time at home. This month I'm at home for a week with my family. That's the kind of life that I lead, because I do a lot of work with my fellow Inuit as well in the Arctic. I'm often invited to go home to Nunavut. We live in Ottawa, Ontario now. Our daughter was going to school at a college called Algonquin already 5 years ago. And so she's the reason that we moved to Ottawa. Otherwise, if I have every choice, I would live back home in Nunavut. For the past 35 years or so, I've been traveling like this for a long period of time. And I'm one of many Inuit who travel a lot in the name of promoting the creation of Nunavut, that we have success in Nunavut. I never say bad things about Nunavut, because it's something that I think it's kind of like our baby, and it's something that we are extremely proud of. It's something that we truly embrace and truly love. So we are extremely proud of where we come from in Nunavut as Inuit. But again, particularly to answer your question, I don't spend a lot of time at home, unfortunately. I'd like to spend a lot more time, but a lot of people invite me and other people, like other Inuit leaders in Nunavut, to go and speak at various universities or colleges or meetings to do with, for example, climate change and global warming is another one that I could talk about for a couple of hours, because it's really having a lot of impact in the Arctic. Spring comes in earlier, fall time comes in later. We're having robins in our communities that we have never seen before. Ice doesn't freeze as thick as it used to. Old ice is disappearing because it's melting, and polar bears are having no more place to hunt because of the ice. So these are the kind of things that we're invited to speak at various levels of society in many parts of the world. So a lot of my fellow Inuit, particularly my generation, we do a lot of travel in promoting and in talking about the creation of Nunavut and Inuit. So to answer your question, I don't spend a lot of time, unfortunately, at home. I'd like to spend more time, but I don't. Unfortunate. Every time I get home, it is very precious.
Thank you for being with us tonight. And in your talk, you talked about the move from the way of life you knew as a boy to moving into wooden houses and into towns. Are there opportunities for Inuit youth to experience the way of life that you grew up with as a boy?
Yeah, the only difference between the young people today and my generation is that our young people no longer live in igloos, as I said. Our young people are having a much better opportunity to reach out to the rest of the world through technology, for example, through traveling to many different parts of the world. This Nunavut Sivu Niksavut, Nunavut Our Future of young people, is a really, really good organization because they get to travel and meet people like yourselves, university people, for example, and they talk about the creation of Nunavut, their experiences in Nunavut, in growing up in Nunavut. Here is what we try to say to our young people in Nunavut. You know, get a good education, complete your high school, go beyond high school, be able to get a good job, and be able to communicate in the world of modern technology. At the same time, be able to live traditional way of life, that's hunting, and being able to build an igloo, for example, on the land. Because if you don't know how to build an igloo on the land in the Arctic, you can't survive, because the blizzards and winters are extremely mean in the Arctic. So that's what we tell them, and that's what we're teaching them about the Arctic as well. But our young people are really advancing much more so than we did. They travel, they learn a lot, and they experience a lot about life in the rest of, in many different parts of the world, like this one. I am sometimes envious of the young people because they have all that opportunity to travel to many different parts of the world and learn about the rest of the world, which is something that we had limited knowledge about because we were igloo people. But today, everything has opened up. In Nunavut, for example, in Iqaluit, for example, we are heavily wired in our community now. You know, so if I send an email to Sam, for example, from Iqaluit, it's there in less than a second. You know, 50 years ago, it took an aircraft from Winnipeg at least 2 months to get from Winnipeg to Repulse Bay. Today, same place, it can be there within 6 hours. So we have advanced that much in less than 50 years, and it's something we're extremely proud of. This being the last question, I want to say something about Ames. I truly enjoy my visit to Ames because the people of Ames are extremely, extremely kind people, very considerate people. And I just want to give you an example. I noticed that payphones are kind of out of date. The other day, I went to North Grand Mall,
and I took out a couple of 25 cents to make a call a taxi. And the young lady came by and she said, would you like to use my cell phone? I thought, wow, that's nice. And it's something that doesn't happen in many different parts of the world that I've been to. I can think of places like New York or Toronto at home, But to get that kind of welcome in a place like yours, Ames is a nice place to come to. And the young girl at the front desk here at the hotel the other day, when Chad and I went to check, when I went to check in here, remember that young lady? And she said, I recognize who you are. I saw you last year here. Welcome home. So it's kind of, it's a really good feeling right here in my heart to be able to go back to come back to Ames and visit the very nice, very kind people that you are here, right here in Ames. I also just want to say I give you back by building 3 Inukshuks and teach about Inuit culture and language while I'm here, and about the creation of Nunavut, which is something that I totally enjoy. So let me take this opportunity to thank all of you for coming here tonight. It's just been very good, and let's always take this opportunity to work together as a team for life, for our future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Peter. That's great. Just to let you all know, Peter has actually finished one of the Inukshuit Suet in Emma McCarthy Lee Park, and you can go see that right now. It's surrounded by plastic, and the concrete is still curing, so be careful. But you can at least go check it out. And then he will be working on the one at Brookside tomorrow and the following day. But he will also be with us, the Public Art Commission, at the Octagon Arts Festival this weekend on Sunday. And he'll actually be carrying on a demonstration on how to build an Inukshuk. So please join us on Sunday. And then next week he'll be working on the one at Ada Hayden. So please go out and check it out and observe how he does this. So once again, let's give a round of applause for Peter.